Chat with you today because you have such an interesting study out that basically tells us that babies are altruistic. So in other words, as people, we're born kind. Is that right?
Well, we found that kindness in our study, so children at 19 months of age were perfectly willing to share a delicious fruit. So at 19 months, some things may have happened,
Right.
from birth to 19 months, but we found that they were very, very helpful and essentially compassionate at this young age with something as delicious as fruit.
And you even tested this on toddlers who were hungry, right?
Yes. So in our first initial study, we did find that the majority of these 19-month-olds were sharing the fruit, and then we thought, well, what if it was a little bit more difficult? So what we did is we asked the parents to bring in their infant right before the time when they would usually eat their snack or a meal. So we thought that might make them hungry, so perhaps that could affect the results. But we still found, nonetheless, that quite a few of the infants still shared under that situation.
I want to actually show some video from your research
Sure.
here, so let me see if I can get this called up. This is just kind of a shorter clip, but it'll give people an idea of how you did this. So that's you behind the table, right?
Yes.
And then we see this little 19-month-old guy, and you have some fruit in your hand.
It's a strawberry.
Okay, and he doesn't know you, right? You're basically a stranger.
Yes.
Okay.
They just met me.
And then I see you've dropped it, and he picks it up for you and gives it back. Oh, there we're going to some other another interview with you. So you're kind of like gesturing that you would like it back. Did that influence him? Did you also
Yeah.
test it without gesturing?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do in psychology studies is that we have what are called randomly assigned groups. So the children came into the situation, and at that point, half of the children saw the experimenter, who was myself, reaching out for this fruit that I accidentally dropped. And so it was pretty clear that I kind of wanted that fruit back,
Right.
so they could have gone over to help. So the other half of the children, they did not see me do that. Rather, they saw the experimenter intentionally threw the fruit into
okay.
this tray that we had, that you showed in the video.
Yeah.
And in that situation, the children, the experimenter just didn't indicate that they wanted it back.
Right.
So the children were far less likely to pick it up and just randomly give it to me. So
Right.
that kind of suggests that they understood that there was a need,
Yeah.
that the person wanted that fruit back, and quite a few of them did help out.
Step in to help.
Yes.
So it's interesting, and it's a sweet story of research, but tell me about the deeper meaning in it. Why does this matter to us?
Sure. So really for thousands of years, we as humans, as scholars, have been wanting to find out, can we see helping behavior? Does altruism exist? Do people help each other? How much do they help each other? Does their experience in some way account for what we see? So this is a classic question, and we thought that it was time to test it in what we called a costly setting. So this was really costly, this study that you mentioned, the second study, where their bodies were feeling that sense of hunger,
Right.
perhaps. And so it was time to eat, and some of them did eat. They ate a lot more than when parents weren't asked to come in at that particular time.
Yeah.
So they clearly, as a group, wanted that fruit, and a lot of them ate it, but yet they still helped. So that really, it really tells us that at this age, children are already willing to participate in a positive way with other people, And that is something that informs us about, what humanity is capable of.
Right, they're giving a little bit of a sacrifice there in not eating the snack themselves. I think some parents might see this, especially parents of little babies or toddlers, the 19-month-old age, and wonder, okay, so what does this mean about my child, and what can I do to help enhance that altruism as they grow older? Because you don't want them to lose it, right?
Absolutely. So one of the really interesting things that we did find in our study is that we looked at some potential social experiences that might be associated with whether specific children picked up the fruit and gave it to this stranger. And interestingly, we found that, for example, children that had siblings were more likely to pick it up and share it with a stranger. So that indicates that that's at least one potential type of social experience, say being exposed to a whole other person in the home, and that person has their own perhaps needs, and there's a lot of coordination that might happen. They might be interacting even at the dinner table together, and of course there's just so many more opportunities for the development of social skills that, say, a sibling might give a 19-month-old. So in our study we found that was significantly associated with. So that's interesting, and of course you could think more broadly. There are clearly some potential social experiences that could help children to help others. I mean, in other research that I did before I came to iLabs, we kind of showed that say a back and forth kind of game. These are really important kind of experiences that children can have, because they're looking around to see what are people doing, what is expected of me, and they want to contribute in a positive way.
They're learning maybe so much earlier than some people realize. It seems like observe and actually take in and process.
Absolutely. So for a long time in developmental psychology, we thought that, well, they were not observing, maybe they're not learning, that the baby was blooming, buzzing confusion were the old phrases of describing babies. But in recent decades, we've really learned that the young infant, even just as soon as after they're born, they are capable of seeing other people, of noticing, of imitating. Sometimes, some studies are showing marvelous effects for what even younger children can do and figure out. So yes, children, infants are very, very advanced creatures. We need to acknowledge that and really try to find ways to promote that in their development.
And I know that your study here on altruism was just published yesterday, right?
Yes.
So maybe I'm jumping ahead too much in asking this question, but I'm imagining a parent who says, well, we don't have another child right now, but I do want to try to enhance this idea of altruism in my child. Is that just then a matter of, you think, maybe just exposing them to different social situations and making sure that they just have these opportunities to learn that type of behavior?
So we think that that's a large component of it. It's, yes, exposing children to different situations. Every social situation that children can enter will kind of change their skills in some way. Maybe they might go to daycare, they might go interact with grandma. So all of these experiences certainly do build their capacities for emotional understanding and social engagement. And if perhaps other experiences are not necessarily immediate, no, parents can certainly engage in activities such as, say, they could engage in a back and forth engagement way, because children, as there's of course games like peekaboo. Those are stimulating for young minds, and all sorts of back and forth games. They are a way to engage the child in its participatory way that acknowledges what they're capable of, and they start learning that maybe people in general can be relied upon to interact with me. And so maybe they become a little bit more willing to do so.
Right. Interesting. I want to see if anybody, I don't think we've got any other questions from viewers right now, but I did want to let people know that we have a link here on Facebook too, where people can see that video that we showed again and hear a little bit more from you and just learn a little bit more about the research. Because I think everybody as parents, that's one of the main things we want for our kids, right? Is we want them to grow up and be kind. So really interesting. Yeah.
Yes. No, I mean, we have to find ways to promote this, because clearly it's very important. As children grow older, they'll have a lot more opportunities to help others and to receive help. So that can all contribute towards what I think we all want, which is like a more caring society.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in.